Hello, welcome back to the To Be podcast. And I'm joined from a good friend of mine, a fellow, I would say entrepreneur, a business slash coach slash channel slash whatever you want to call it, by Claire Phillips. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time. And how are you? What's been going on?
I'm amazing. Thank you, Carl. And thank you so much for asking me to come on to the show. It's a pleasure to be here and to have a chat with you this evening.
Cool, awesome. And I appreciate, I know this we've had a couple of deep conversations before, and you shared with me like some information that I feel it's so relevant in nowadays, like with where you've come from. And I know
Mm.
it's very deep and it's like you've transitioned from that. So tell the audience that's listening or watching, like, let's say who was Claire before? And just sum it up. It's a very, very broad question, I know. But who
That's such a interesting. I literally got asked this the other day, and I was like, wow, how do I even summarize this? So Claire, prior to going on, I would call it like the self-development healing journey or whatever you want to call it. I was actually a very disconnected, very numb, depressed individual. I looked okay on the outside, but on the inside, I was a very sad, depressed person. I felt numb. I didn't have any emotions. I'd blocked them all off, and I was just kind of going through the motions of life, where you like that, you're kind of like a robot, just living each day and just I was just existing. I wasn't living. And I look back now and I don't actually even recognize that woman anymore. Like it seems like it's a completely different lifetime.
yeah.
And, now I wake up and I'm so excited for the day. I love being present in the moment. I'm going to, we've been for walks around the lake. I just love going for walks around the lake with my dog and just taking in the magnificence of the beauty of the day. And I just have so much gratitude for being alive and being here and running my business and doing what I do. And I'm grateful for all the lessons that have unfolded throughout my life. So a very different person now.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like a, yeah, such an interesting question because I cannot relate to the older version of me anymore. I'm sure you
Yeah,
can probably.
that's the hardest thing is like when you start this self-healing, this personal development journey, like you just reflect and you're like, I like it's hard to sort of explain who you once were when this new version.
Mm.
But I know we've had a brief conversation on a walk and I asked you questions because I feel like this relates to a lot of women in particular. Like it's eating disorders. Like what's your like you had a really bad eating
Yeah.
disorder.
Yeah, so I struggled with bulimia for around about, I want to say more along the really, but probably about 18 years, a really long time. And bulimia, for anyone who doesn't know, is a bit different to anorexia. Bulimia is where you'll gorge on food and then purge. And it really controlled my life, as I say, for 18 years. And no one knew. I kept it hidden. This
Mm.
is the thing about eating disorders is so many people have them and you become very, 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 very good at hiding it. Like, I was married for a number of years and he never knew.
Mm.
My family never knew. Like my housemates never knew when I've had housemates. So people have always been really, really shocked when I finally actually spoke into it and said, "Hey, look, I've got an eating disorder." People were genuinely really shocked and didn't know. So it's very easy to hide when you are committed to hiding it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a real hard one, Carl, because food is it's there, isn't it? It's there in your face. It's part of life. So any kind of addiction that you're struggling with food, be it, the binge eating, or if you are anorexic or anything along those lines, it's just really in your face. It's one of those things. And I always say to people, if you've had an eating disorder, like there are points in my sometimes when I'm really bad that it crosses my mind about bulimia because it was such a coping mechanism for me for 18 years is a really long time.
Mhm.
uh I now I have a stronger view of I don't want to go down that road again. but it's something that I know I'll always live with. You know, I know there's going to be points in my life in the future where probably like I'll have a flashing thought where I'm like, I want to do that, and then I'll go no. So I feel, I believe a lot of addictions can be that way. It's just the fact that once you've managed to overcome them and you have the tools in your toolbox to remain in a place of strength, that it becomes easier. But I don't believe that if you've had an addiction, it ever truly goes away. That's
Mm.
my opinion on it. There may be times, you know, it's easier, and I could be wrong. Other people might not agree with this, but I think that if you hit a dark or a hard time in your life and a struggle, that flash is something that will be there. It's just the fact it's the difference now is I can go no and change it and implement tools, whereas before I didn't have that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And like you've had to invest in yourself to learn those tools. And it's like an addiction will, I 100% agree with like the addictions will never go away. It's just being aware of it and knowing why, for example, you could be eating something or knowing having the awareness of it is, I guess, the main key from that. And what made you, because you had this for 18 years, so how did you really like actually own up to it and like get like healed
Mm,
basically?
yeah, it's a really good question. It kind of was like this organic unraveling. There wasn't one singular moment I can go, this is it. Like I remember I was still in a bit of party days. I hadn't really done much healing at this point. In fact, I hardly done any. And I remember in my party days, I was saying, I think I was pretty high with a friend and I told her. And that was the first time I told someone. And I was like, oh, that felt good. Like actually getting it, because I'd held on to it for so long. And it felt so good to actually go, hey, I do this. And it was really surprising. She was like, hey, so do I. And I was like, whoa, hectic, and she's like, I've never told anyone. I was like, no, neither have I, so it was this,
Crazy.
yeah, absolutely, the universe. And as I sort of that, and then I didn't tell anyone for ages. And then, time went on, and then I think I told someone else. And then they were like, yeah, I used to struggle with that too. And I was like, what? And as it's unraveled, I actually know many of my female friends have had very similar journeys, not similar, but they've struggled with food. Maybe they weren't all bulimic, but they've had a binge eating. Some of them were bulimic as well, not for as long as I was or anything along those lines, but they've all had that struggle with food, struggle with body image, struggle with whatever was going on. And that was a relief for them, or a release system, or a coping mechanism. So I think the more I understood that other people had it, I didn't have as much shame around it. Obviously, I still had a lot of shame around it. And I think it was just like it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. I think there was one time and I just broke down to myself and I was like, I can't do this anymore. What am I doing to my body? And it was like this breaking point for me. And from that day forward, I was like, no more, absolutely no more. And then from that day forward, I haven't. And don't get me wrong, there's been plenty of times when, especially like in the past, that I've thought about it. But yeah, it was from that day forward, it was like a no more thing. And
Yeah,
it got easier over time because it was a habit as well. Like it was a real big habit for me. And I had to really face my emotions then, because I'd used that as such a suppressor for my emotions. So yeah, I remember the first few weeks after that, I had like this volcano of stuff coming up and I was just a mess. Because I was actually like allowing myself to feel my emotions. I was like, holy shit, what have I done?
one thing
um,
one thing is like is actually um allowing like when that come up, it's like being able to let it go is like the hardest thing, like I find. And even if men are listening, like it affects. I know myself, I have some addictions with some food, and I'm like, it's not something I'm so much proud of, but at the same time, like I know I'm aware of it. So now I'm just making sure I make the right choices to move from it. And when you say you express it to someone, it's quite fascinating when you can say it to someone, you realize, oh, that person's had a same experience. I'm not the only one.
yeah. And isn't it funny when you say something that you hold so much shame around, how the shame dissolves? Because, we create the shame so much, this thing that we've done or we're doing or whatever it is, when you actually speak it out loud, you sort of feel the shame go, oh, because someone else hears it and they're like, okay, cool. And you're like, are you not ashamed of me? And they're just like, no, you're human, or whatever they say back to you, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe I'm just being so hard on myself. And it's a really interesting one, because once we understand that, we're all human, we're all having this dynamic experience down here on earth, and we're feeling all these emotions and doing all these things. And sometimes, we all do something or multiple things that we might be ashamed of. But at the end of the day, like, who's actually labeled the thing that you've done, good or bad? Like, when you take those labels away, it's just an experience. And I find that really helps to process as well. When you take away all the bullshit labels and the conditioning and the societal expectations, and just actually go back to the bare bones of, this is just an experience, it's a lot easier to actually work through what's coming up and be like, okay, well, my emotions are coming through, and I'm just going to allow them to process as sensations rather than labeling them this, that, and the other.
Yeah, and what is a process I guess you've learnt that allowed you to be aware of what you were eating and whether it was a good choice or not?
Um, do you know what? It's such a simple process, but I absolutely rate journaling. Like, journaling's like my favorite thing ever. And people say, like, it is actually like a superpower, journaling, because I don't know about you, if you've ever had this thing going around in your head, you're like, and then suddenly you
Yeah.
sit down and start writing, and you're like, oh,
Oh,
that feels better. That's so
yeah.
much better. What am I worrying about? And I find that with food, like, if I come up and I'm like, okay, I'm feeling this urge, or I just want to go and eat and I'm not even hungry. It's like, okay, well, what am I distracting myself from? And if I go and, grab my journal and start writing, it will come out. Like, maybe I'm distracting myself from doing a piece of work that I find hard, or maybe I'm distracting myself from, some emotions that I didn't want to feel, or whatever it is. It's usually a distraction process, because at the end of the day, we don't need to eat as much as we do in this day and age.
It's the conditioning the conditioning that we've been taught. I mean, my brother showed me this video the other day, and I was just so, because I've sort of known about it, but it goes really, really deep about like the subconscious things they feed us about eating. And he just showed me, and I was
Mm,
like, oh, I was like,
you
okay,
have to send me that, please.
yeah, I'm gonna. He sent it to me. I'm gonna send. I'll definitely send it. It was like just this concept about how like we eat so much food, yet at the same time, it's a belief system from our conditioning that allows us to have all this. We don't even need to have breakfast. Like, we can go without food for days, and it's just these things that we've been told we should be doing. When in reality,
Absolutely.
the root cause is we get the choice to eat whatever we want, but we don't need to eat all the time.
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's a couple of points on that. There's I think I might be telling you someone else anyway, but there's a documentary, I want to say on Netflix, but it might not be, but it's about a tribe in Africa, and a guy goes and stays with them for a couple of weeks. And this tribe, I mean, I know they're indigenous and they've grown up this way, but these guys literally eat in a week is like some honey, some natural bush honey, and they might get one kill of like a bigger animal that they all share. And there's like a tribe of like 20, 25 people, and they all share this one animal. And then they chew on sticks for roughage, for fiber. And like, there's a certain bark that they do that's got loads of nutrients in there, and also it's great for fiber. And that's literally all they eat. And they're super lean, obviously, because they're, running around and catching stuff and things like that. And then on the buy side of that is as well, there's a really cool, there's a few people that are of a consciousness that don't eat at all. So there's a lady in India, and she hasn't eaten for like 25 years.
What?
And then, yeah. So she's actually trained her body now. So she runs on source. And I'm not advocating this for people who are listening. Obviously, go and do your own research and look into it. I'm not advocating starving or anything along those lines. But yeah, she's of such a high consciousness that she just channels source energy, and that her body runs from source energy. And then another interesting one was a gentleman who was severely overweight. So he was in America, and he was like 300 pounds or something along those lines. I don't know what that is in kilos. And he lost 180, I think it was, 80 pounds in 7 months, and he didn't eat for 7 months. So he just had hydrolytes like in water. So he's getting his minerals. And he didn't eat for 7 or 8 months and lost that weight. And now he only eats like, apparently he says he only eats probably every 3 or 4 days because he doesn't need to eat anymore. And he's not of a spiritual high consciousness. It just goes to show that we don't obviously listen to your body. I'm not advocating starving, not eating,
Yes,
whatever, but
listen to your body. Yes.
also ask yourself, do you need to be consuming the volume of food that you are currently consuming?
Or is it an emotion and a thing that could be coming up because you've had a conversation with someone and they've really triggered you in a way. I know for me that sometimes comes up where I need some sugar because someone's like said something and triggered me, and I'm like, oh no, I don't need sugar. It's just I need to process that in my internal dialogue. So it's
Mm,
being conscious of what you're eating, but also making sure that you're asking yourself that question is, do I really need to eat, or is this just something that I'm feeding?
yeah. Or even just habit, like
Yes,
how
habits.
many
That's
people
what I
just
was going
wake
to
up in
say.
the morning? Yeah, how many people just wake up in the morning and have their breakfast and their tummy's not even rumbling?
100%. I think that's what I was going to say earlier. I'm glad it's always fascinating. We have these conversations that opens a loop up. I'm like, there was something else. Breaking habits. Breaking habits is the hardest part. And I know we're both in the same coaching container. And I've found myself breaking so many habits. Like I'm now doing stuff like I'll do stuff on the side, but then I'll be like, no, I don't need to do that. But my body will do it. But then I'm like, I'm
Mm,
where I stop. I'm like, why am I going here when I don't need to be going here? It's because I've formed, but I'm now breaking habits. And the hardest thing with eating and being disciplined, you would say, is breaking
mm,
habit. And I think it
absolutely.
comes down to one, self-accountability. And if you
Mm,
don't have that in your life, ask a friend that you rely, that you trust to have that, or just discipline yourself. And if you need discipline, invest in a coach. Like that's,
mm. I think discipline's an interesting one, isn't it? Because speaking from personal experience, I really rejected discipline for a really long time.
yeah,
I think from about 15, I just went on this big rebellion. And due to, a circumstance in my family, and I went on this big rebellion down the drugs and alcohol and partying and just completely like middle finger to discipline. And
yeah,
I've actually only recognized that in the last couple of years where I'm like, wow, I really don't like this. I still, not that I don't like, but I've rejected it for a long time. So I've only recently started integrating discipline. And actually, that now I'm reflecting on that, that could be a bit of a lie. I think I might have said that I reject discipline because I quit smoking really easy. I quit alcohol really easy. I quit drugs really easy. So I have got some discipline, but I feel like when there's some point things that I need to discipline myself, I find a lot harder than others. Like the gym's not a high priority for me. I have to really force myself to go to the gym.
yeah. It's I think it's you've got to build the discipline. Like it's not doesn't something that comes overnight, and you've got to actually make the effort and to do it. I mean, it's like that control thing. Like I don't like control. Yeah, I mean I do like control, but also I'm aware
Mm,
I don't like control. Like it's just letting go. And I realize in the last few weeks that I'm actually craving control so much. But the moment I let
mm,
go, it's just like, okay, it's easy. But then discipline also comes into fact. It's got to be discipline and what you're looking, and it comes down to the why, right? Like why are
mm,
you looking at going to the gym, or why are you wanting to maintain healthy habits? Well, because if you think about it, if you don't do it now, it's a compound effect later on in life. Like you're gonna get old, you're gonna have really bad health problems, you're gonna be suffering from a lot of things, and you've got to go through that suffering in order to establish what you want to like establish a better way of living, basically.
I agree. And I think as well, sometimes when there can be resistance around discipline, it can be a good idea to look at your inner rebel and see what your inner rebel's coming out, because that's that swing of that pendulum, isn't it? Where's the charge for you to swing from all in to all out, all in to all out? Like what's going on in here and how can you diffuse that charge?
That's quite powerful. It's always that inner child, inner rebel, and I find myself sometimes I'm like, this person's coming out today, and it's those that are listening and watching potentially. the inner, I'd say inner rebel is like inner child, basically. It's like that person that doesn't want to listen to anyone but just break the rules and do things. And I find myself sometimes breaking rules, also find myself being having to play by the rules, but also at the same time I know that it's not something that I want.
Mm. It's so interesting, isn't it? That it's yeah, how we're wired and we have all our different stories and our, what's going on. It's great. I find it
It's
fascinating.
it's the subconscious mind, the body, the soul, whatever you want to call it. It's so powerful. And when you can tap into different parts of your mind that you've really got to lean in and do the inner work in order to tap into that side of your mind. I know for me, I now do things like I literally, someone will say something to me. I say to my subconscious, okay, listen to this, bring it up at a point where I need it. And it's like,
Mm,
I'm like, and it comes up when someone triggers me in something. And I'm like, okay, sweet, put it out. So I don't need to really a pen and a paper anymore. I'll just subconsciously learn and my subconscious bring it to my conscious brain, which is like,
amazing.
which is cool as, but it's like,
Yeah.
it's even where I work, like bring a pen. I'm like, oh, I'll bring a notepad, but I can just listen and whatever you say to me, I can project it. But it's quite fascinating when you can get that deep level into your mind. It's,
Mm.
I don't know about you, like, is your experience like what's your experience in regards to the conscious side of, or the energy side of your own growth?
I find that especially when we do, we're obviously in the same container, our transformation container. I find any kind of transformation work, my subconscious processes whilst I'm asleep, which is great.
Yes,
And I'll
it's,
have mad dreams that will go back to like school and it will relate to whatever I'm healing, not the actual circumstance, but it will be like something will happen. So say if I had a self-worth issue, it will go back to a school, like school people in my dream where I felt unworthy, but in the dream I feel worthy now. So it's almost like my subconscious is showing me that I'm now. Does that make sense?
that's that, I had I had a dream similar to that, but in a different aspect of life. And that I do sometimes get those dreams as well. It only comes to me though when I need it to come to me. Like the dream will come when I actually want it to come to me.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I have the same thing like as we jumped on here, I said to you, I'm going through this bit of a shift and a level up at the moment and stepping into like a new version of myself. And then whenever that happens, stuff always comes up to the
Oh,
surface. And it's interesting because I had a dream last night that highlighted to me what was coming up because it was coming out in my dream. And I'm like, okay, yeah, cool, that's great.
yeah.
Thank you so much. Like this is what's coming up, and I know what needs to be processed. It's just I know it's going to be some time for it just to process and feel the feels and go through it all. But I always find it, sort of wading through treacle a little bit as you're processing this stuff, and then suddenly it's like bam, you're through the other side, and it's like, yes, I've made it.
Yeah, no, I feel you because a lot of stuff's coming up for me as well right now. And it's like stepping into a new version of myself. And it's fast because a lot of stuff's triggering me as well. And I'm like, okay, let's
Mhm.
process this. Why is this coming up? The emotions are coming out, which I don't expect, but it's just coming out because it's like a wound that I haven't healed just yet. And I feel as though what I'm doing this year in 2024 is going to heal that like dramatically, or it's just going to let me let it go, not hold on to it and kill it basically, like let it
Amazing.
die. So it's quite powerful. And from your journey from where you've overcome a food disorder to now channeling source energy, I know this is something you utilize in your business. So if you want to
Yep.
share with people what your business is and exactly what you do, if you can summarize it very quickly.
Yeah, of course. So I work in energetics and I'm a business energetics coach. So I teach other people how they can leverage the power of energetics to up level their business. So that's tapping into the consciousness or the energetic template of their business because at the end of the day, we live in an energetic reality.
Yep.
Energy is the fabric of our reality, which we're creating every day. So you're harnessing these practices to elevate your business is, it seems like a no-brainer to me. Like, why are we not using energetics in everyday life? So, tapping into the consciousness of your business, tapping into and understanding the energy of money, the blocks around money, your limiting beliefs around money, your floor and ceiling points around money, activating certain energetic soul gifts that you've gathered along your many lifetimes here. Looking at your energetic container, which is your body and your nervous system. If your nervous system's fried and you're living in survival mode, energetically, you're not going to be you're not going to have a capacity to be taking on more clients, more money, more love, more happiness, whatever it is. So it's about looking after your energetic container so you can expand that container. All sorts of different shadow work that plays out in business, your business model and the energetics around your business model. It's a fascinating subject and I love it. And there's obviously transformation around that as well. And I work with my clients on their mind, body, and spirit. So although I do channel energy and I speak to, we talk about energetics, we go at a deeper level as well of if people have got blocks or emotional wounds around certain areas, because let's face it, business throws up your traumas and emotional wounds as well, just like a relationship will. So I work with people cognitively because I'm a hypnotherapist too. I work with people somatically, so in their cellular body, because all three levels is where wounds and traumas and all that kind of stuff can live. So working at all three levels allowed people to have a bigger and faster transformation.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, it's something that I've only really I've always known it, but like now I'm in point with my body, my physiology as well. It's like where focus go, energy flows, as Tony Robbins always says. But it's like so important, and the same thing in an environment where it's a business or sales environment. It's very much the same thing. And when you unravel the mysteries of the mind and potentially what you're potentially holding on to that no longer serves you, you can create massive shifts, even quick shifts in your life. And
Absolutely.
awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. I do appreciate it. I know we could have gone a lot more deeper and a lot more conversation. I know we have the conversations we've had, it's so in depth, but it's also like realizing how long we've had the conversation for.
I know.
Um,
You can go on for hours.
you forget when you're so much in a state of someone where you're on that connected level, you have just time is irrelevant. Um,
Yeah.
but I do appreciate you coming on. And for those listening, watching, where can people find you?
Yep, so they can find me on Facebook and also Instagram. I can send you my links if people do want to reach out and have a chat. Happy to send me a DM and have a follow.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thanks again for jumping on, and we'll be speaking very soon.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kyle. It's been an honor.
Thanks.